Eventide Entertainment presents The Drive-In, hosted by Aaron Lopez. Alright, well, welcome back to the second part of our Infinity War discussion. Last week we wrapped up with a little bit of a discussion there on Thanos and on his beliefs and philosophies, and this week we're going to pick right back up with that discussion of Thanos and Gamora. So we'll get right back into it. Enjoy the second half of Infinity War discussion with John, Casey, and Jack. This is we kind of like got a little bit off, but like we were talking about Gamora and Thanos as a child, Gamora as a child, and Thanos has this like fatherly connection to Gamora. He takes her aside and shows her this double-sided dagger, and he holds it out on his hand and on his finger, and he says it's balanced. Too much on one side or too much on the other, and you lose the balance. And he gives it to her, and at that point, then we see half of the planet be killed, or half the population. So this is kind of this play-in of his motivation, almost a sympathetic moment of him protecting her from seeing all this, but then it flashes back to her, who's holding this dagger, and she then is talking to Quill about something she knows that she can't tell him. She tells him that he'll know, and it's the reason why Thanos is going to want her, which is essentially she knows where the Soul Stone is.
Yeah, right.
One of a couple, we'll get to back to nowhere in a second, but a very important moment between Quill and Gamora. They've teased it throughout the entire Guardians that they're a thing, but they really haven't gotten serious about it up until the point where she's begging him, if it comes down to him getting me or me dying, you have to kill me. Like, he cannot find where the Soul Stone is. And he's like, no, I won't do it. And she's like, no, seriously. And then we do have a nice moment with Drax eating like
Star-Lord and Gamora finally kiss, which that is one love story I've always been happy that they've shown.
Yeah, they played it up.
That's one I'm really glad they built up, because it finally pays off there, and then it pays off on Nowhere too.
Yes,
and then I thought it was really sweet. And then Drax comes in and makes it funny, which I thought was hilarious. Drax is easily one of the funniest characters in the MCU. I love Drax.
It's like I have mastered being so still that I am invisible to the eye. And he's like starts bringing a chip up to his mouth, and she's like, "No, we can see you." He's like, "I'm going so slow that you cannot even perceive that I'm here still."
Mantis comes
and
in.
Mantis. Hi, Drax.
He's like, "Damn it!"
And he crumples up the bed.
So yeah, we get this play up that. Of what Gamora wants Quill to do, and then on Nowhere, it actually comes into play. After she, quote, kills Thanos, you hear Thanos' voice, and it starts to sweep this red line of the Reality Stone, and he's created a false reality. He wanted to know that she still cared about him. And so everything, including the Collector, who I'm pretty sure Benicio del Toro was destroyed as the Collector as Thanos was getting this Reality Stone, and it's really cool. Like, it's almost like one of those like star sweeps across, and it shows you from the real, like, what we have been seeing Nowhere to be to this burnt, destroyed wasteland of what Nowhere now really is.
It was a very George Lucas transition shot.
Oh yeah. Just swipe, or what's it?
Star swipe.
Yeah. But it was cool. Like, I thought visually was neat. But then you see Thanos walking up, and he now has the Reality Stone, and Drax is all pissed off, and Drax is going to run at him, and Drax then actually gets like cut up into pieces,
turned into blocks or something.
Chunks, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He gets chunked out, and then Mantis literally is like a string. Like, her whole body becomes like ribbon.
Uncoils.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked that, because that's what happens in the comic. You see, like, they're talking about each stone and what it does to Thanos, because they even mention, like, you have to be extremely powerful to wield more than one, like one stone alone, but more than one. It takes a toll on him, and it talks about what his realities actually become very fragmented, and so it's kind of cool in the comic. You see like his face like chunked up and all like trippy and on acid and stuff. It looks like it's pretty cool that they did that. I thought that meant though that those two are done.
That's what I thought too.
Right.
Sam, yeah.
I was
kind of hoping, but then you also saw the trailers with him on Titan.
yeah.
But
I don't know. I mean, well, like, see, that's the thing is we can't trust the trailers anymore.
I'm never trusting
Like,
a Marvel trailer anymore.
Never again. But then this is where the moment of Gamora gets captured by Thanos, and he points the gun at her, and she's saying, "You got to do it, you got to do it," and he's like, "I'm going to know," and he's like, "No, she's not talking about."
This was the first time I cried. This was the first moment that actually got
rough.
me to cry because she's like, "I love you," and he's like, "I love you too," and he looks away. He doesn't even look at her. He like They make a point. He closes his eyes and pulls the trigger, and then it's Bubbles, and it's like, oh man,
the moment of like having to go through the decision of doing that, and then not even getting for it to happen is rough. It comes back again with Scarlet Witch and Vision, like making them go through more pain than just physically having it happen, which probably is. There's that desensitizing and taking away the sympathy from Thanos is that he would do that to them. But then he has this like he does this. We haven't talked about it yet, but it's like this like black mass behind him, and he like steps back. His transportation is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the bit, I was a bit detached to that scene because he was right there. He was right beside Gamora the entire time, watching it happen, letting it happen. He goaded him to do it.
He was like, "Yeah, go ahead."
And he's just chunked Drax and Uncoiled Mantis. I'm like, he has all the power to not let this happen. And I never at one point feared for it. It was great that he did it, that he pulled the trigger, and it really shows kind of how much he cared that he would go through that for her.
Beautiful character.
I always thought it was more of like because Thanos he led it up to believe he was trying to call his bluff. I think Thanos didn't think he would actually pull the trigger. But just in case he had the bubble gun ready. So I think Thanos was always like, you're not going to pull the trigger. So go ahead. Go ahead. Prove it. Pull the trigger.
He was trying to split the two. Like, basically showing, like, he made the promise to Gamora, but you can't ask him to do that. He doesn't have enough strength to do that. I think so he's trying to basically undercut Quill. But of course, he has the Reality Stone. He has, the
Power in space.
The power in space, but he has the ability to do really whatever he wants at this point.
Right, and it's a real dad moment. It's real dad, you're picking up my daughter for prom type thing. Oh, you're taking my daughter to prom, are you? I mean, the same thing with in Spider-Man, where he's having the heart in the car, same kind of thing. And then even as he steps out, I like him, and steps out because
that part I like how they added that because they didn't have to have him say anything.
No, but it just adds to the point that he's a father. He cares about Gamora, and that's why he's there. I thought they would have made the whole purpose of it about her, and if they had, it would have made getting the Soul Stone so much more dredging and powerful. But
that still hit me pretty hard.
It did. Yeah,
that was rough. Yeah, that was really rough. So they are done on Nowhere. They're kind of you get Drax and Mantis who kind of literally pull themselves back together, and then Star-Lord is quite distraught because now Gamora has been taken. Then we jump over to Nidavellir, which is where Thor, Rocket, and Groot are, and it's this dead star,
neutron star.
Yep, and he's like, "This is not something happened here. This is not what this place looks like."
Right.
And they go through it, and out of nowhere, you basically see this large giant come in after Thor has kind of looked around a little bit. Oh, we forgot. Thor finally gets his eye back, which I think is interesting.
It's a brown one.
It is.
Yeah.
I like that he gets his eye back.
Well, I'm just like, of course, they didn't want the eye patch to last forever. I thought it would at least lasted the whole movie, and then maybe something happened. But it's like maybe half the movie, and they're like, oh, nope, okay. He's got tired of wearing it, so they're like, all right, fine, we'll give you another eye. But yeah, he gets his eye back, and so he comes back, and we finally find out where Peter Dinklage was in this whole movie. He, ironically enough, plays a dwarf. Surprise, surprise. But a giant dwarf. So
like a really, really, really big dwarf.
Yeah, they gave him that at least. It just seems like a dick move.
Like I would just have loved to be in that pitch meeting. They pull out Peter Dinklage. Guess what? We want you to play a dwarf in the Marvel Universe. What? Can you?
Well, he's king of the dwarves at least. I'm looking it up. It's
he's already been in X-Men though. It's a bit of a problematic point there, but yeah.
Yeah, but that whole universe is getting retconned. That universe
is
gone
at some point, which is I think is going to allow us to finally get an Avengers versus X-Men, but it's not going to be the Avengers versus X-Men that we want because all the Avengers are probably going to be different unless they go back and reboot the whole series. But I just can't.
Or it could just be like a Spider-Man with the X-Men, because he's with the X-Men in a lot of different comic stories.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're on Nidavellir, and Peter Dinklage comes in and just starts wailing on Thor and Rocket and Groot, and then he realizes that it's Thor, and he's like, you were supposed to protect us. What happened? You were supposed to protect. And he's like, well, there is no Asgard left, and this is where you start to see how things went. You also see that Dinklage's character, the King of the Dwarves, these dwarves on this planet are able to forge really any weapon, anything, with the power of the star that they have. This is where the Infinity Gauntlet was forged. This is where Mjolnir was forged.
I also think this is where they forged the Black Order's weapons too.
Could have very well been.
Because when Vision gets stabbed, he's like, I couldn't phase through it, and they're like, that shouldn't be possible. I think they also made the Black Order weapons here. They don't say it, but that would be the only way I can think it'd be possible for them to be able to beat an Infinity Stone's power.
Yeah, and it's an easy possibility, given that,
because they'd be like, make all these weapons and make my gauntlet, and then he kills them all anyway.
But I think there's two. Gloves tend to come in pairs. I think there's the second one. I think there's a right hand.
Well, they even had it. They had the one on. It was the
fake one.
From the fake one,
yeah.
So they had that. Then they had the mold from. So yeah, I don't know. That maybe we'll get part 2. Maybe we'll see.
We'll see.
Someone gets an Infinity Gauntlet. Ooh.
Hulk.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
He's the only one whose hands would fit in there.
Right.
I'm sure it would fit to the size of whoever's wearing it.
Really? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, the Mind Stone changed its size to fit in the gauntlet.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you can wipe out half existence with the snap of your fingers, I think you can change a gauntlet to fit your hands.
I would say if you're wearing that, it's going to fit your hand.
It's like the One Ring. It just resizes as needed.
Exactly.
Every time. Oh, jeez.
And we get this great moment where Mantis will put it on, and yeah.
And have all the fields.
I kind of Captain America to wear it, to be perfectly honest.
He would be the part.
I feel like Captain America would be, if an Avenger got to wear it to fix things, I think it would be Captain America. But that's because there's also a theory I have with how they're going to end his character, but we can get to that eventually. But
next year,
when they actually finish it, I'll know whether I was right or wrong.
But that whole sequence around restarting the star and then forging, apart from the group bit, I was a bit meh about when he cut his hand off and turned it into the hand. I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
He had to do something.
He had to do something.
Apart from just playing game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Poor Vin Diesel. Hey Vin, just 2 lines and you're good.
That's the most expensive 2 lines I've ever seen, though.
I understand it, but it doesn't even resemble him in any way. Like, I don't hear Vin. I mean, because granted, even when he was in the first one before he became a child, but it's like, what's the point?
Right.
Like, you could have just had anybody. Like you said, the 2 most expensive lines. I don't know.
Marvel, I'll do it for like $100.
Yeah,
and a pizza. Like
Little Caesars, even.
But, no, the whole sequence I thought was great. Like really showing off the power of Thor and like the kite surfing, whatever it was on the discs,
cool.
And then standing in and really kind of showing off, hey, Thor is right now the only challenger to Thanos. The only one who can really stand up to him.
That blunt force of the sun to his back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My goodness.
Yeah, and you get a little Dinklage joke where we have him saying, it'll kill you. But only, or what did he say?
He's like, you're about to take the full power of the sun, right? It's suicide. He's like, only if I die. I'm like, yeah. That's what killing you means.
That's what I mean by it. We kill you.
And it was nice to see Groot finally do something, because it wasn't that it was literally frustrating, but it was just kind of boring. Like, we get it, Groot's an angsty teenager, but it was cool that he finally decided to do something about it. And the weapon looked badass with like a tree trunk basically as its handle.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that that kind of struck me as weird about that was that they did a whole lot of work in terms of like opening up the lens and everything like that, and melting the metal and all of that. But at the end of the day, like the forging of the powerful weapon seemed really easy. Mm-hmm. Like it just seemed like, oh, it's already done. Cool.
Yeah, it just poured in and he just breaks it up. Where's the handle? Like for something that literally is the only weapon powerful enough to defeat Thanos. At least in theory, it seemed
a little anticlimactic, I thought, but
quick.
Yeah.
But at that point, you were already doing. We've jumped a lot actually, because at that point when they make the weapon, we're already at the Battle of Wakanda. We're already at Battle of Titan.
It was past Titan.
I don't think we
could.
We could spend any more time worrying about this weapon. We kind of like, okay, we need Thor in this.
Yeah,
weapon.
we need to get it there.
We need Thor now. So
let's jump back. We have Vormir, Titan, and Wakanda to deal with. So let's look at Vormir, because there's really only one thing that happens there, and then we can kind of look at Wakanda and Titan. It's a very important one thing, but it's only one thing. So Vormir shows up, and I have to admit, being a huge Marvel fan, I've never even heard of Vormir, so this was a brand new space for me. But this is where the Soul Stone is. We find that we need to go to Vormir after we get back to Thanos' ship, and this is where Nebula comes into play for the first time. And we know that she has been made up. She's more machine than creature or person at this point from her discussions in Guardians 2. But we see her actually literally being pulled apart as a torture device and being used to get Gamora to tell where the Soul Stone is.
She's just an exploded view form.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
God, that was the detail in that though, because like all the individual parts that he was able to pull apart and then use the gauntlet to like probably amplify its power.
Well, and every time he's pulling her apart even more, and that eventually is what gets Gamora to say it's on Vormir. Before this, though, on the throne room, we really see Gamora's pure hatred for him, for Thanos, and we start to see though Thanos actually saying like, "I know, but," and this is where we get this potentially that he does really still care about Gamora, even though he is not able to show it just for multiple reasons. But ultimately, Thanos then does get Gamora to say where the Soul Stone is, and they go to Vormir to take care of it. They basically go up to the top of a mountain. We see a shadowy, cloaked figure floating.
I thought that was going to be Death.
I thought it was too.
That's what I thought, because I heard the voice and I didn't recognize it at first. I thought, is this Death? Is this how they bring Death into the universe?
Yep.
That would have been really cool. And then... But I mean, I'm perfectly fine with what they did.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be Death.
I'm not. It felt really forced. There was no need for him. There was no need to throw Red Skull in there at all.
So if you guys are to kind of catch you up, this shadowy floating figure then gets down to the ground, takes off we steps forward kind of, and we see Red Skull. Red Skull is now guarding the Soul Stone.
Which I was going to do now that the Soul Stone's been taken, but...
I don't know how did he show up there. I really thought...
the Space Stone 1 took him somewhere.
Sent him somewhere in
we
the
don't
universe.
know where.
Okay.
So he could have just got taken to that planet. I just don't know how he's survived and learned all this information.
Right.
Maybe he took the mantle from maybe
And
he's
why him?
maybe he's like a messenger of Death. Maybe like Death sent him, went to him and told him what to do because he killed a lot of people on Earth.
It felt like they were just trying to get the number of like people from the MCU in there, and they crowbarred in Red Skull for 5 minutes. You needed someone there to explain how to get the Soul Stone. Otherwise, it's just Thanos and Gamora walking around going, "Well, is there a book or a map or something? How do we find it?" They required someone to explain it the way they set it up, and it
They might have just thrown like a dart in the dartboard, and we don't know how we have yet.
Yeah,
That's okay.
They justified it with the stone took him there and made him the guardian of the Soul Stone because he's never going to be able to achieve it, and that's really interesting and all. But like watching the film, I did get that sensation where like he took his hood off and it was Red Skull, and I was like, oh, that's Red Skull.
Explains where he is, because like I saw the second time I saw with my brother, and I was waiting for his reaction for that moment. He took off the hood and goes, "Well, that wasn't expected."
Yeah, it doesn't make sense initially. You can go back and look, and you're like, okay, well, he is somewhere, and I guess okay, this makes sense. But it just your initial reaction is like
unnecessary.
It's like, really, Red Skull? Like,
I think Death probably would have been a cooler way if it was Death.
Yeah, well,
and
you
had to
I
give
don't
Death
know
somebody to get the Soul Stone. But
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna have Death in this. I thought that Hela would have been Death because she had that vibe, and she clearly didn't. We didn't see her die. We saw like her jump at whatever his name was.
Soot or something like that? Or Sutor?
Sitar. Sutor.
Sitar was the name of the planet, wasn't it?
Sutor. I can't
I thought it was like
remember.
Soot or like Sutur or something.
Bob. Let's go on Bob.
Bob the big dragon fire dude.
The Deus Ex Machina of Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where I just felt like there were so many other potential routes you could have gone that Red Skull didn't seem...
Surtur was his name.
Surtur.
He served his purpose. I mean,
He did.
it was cool to be like, oh, that's where Red Skull is, but, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Death would have been a cooler way of doing it.
Yeah.
So
Well, especially because of what happens.
Yeah.
So there's the getting of the Soul Stone.
Oh my god, that...
I liked it. I thought it really kind of humanized Thanos and that he had to give up the thing that he prized most. But then I'm wondering if that's the thing he prized most, why is he doing everything else?
Mm-hmm.
That's, again, I keep calling into his question his character. And he's very, like, I see it from an engineering perspective. He goes, this is the plan, we're going to do the plan, and half is fair, half is random and logical and makes sense. But then if he cares about Gamora more than anything else...
The one thing he loves more than anything else, yeah.
And he calls it out that, I've made that mistake once, won't do it again. Okay, so he's trying to not repeat the sins of the past. I do have a theory about this, and it ties into the ending, that she is in the Soul Stone. That her soul is, that the Soul Stone is populated by the soul you sacrifice, and that's the cost that you are haunted by the soul you give up. And that's why it comes back at the end of child Gamora asking him what did it cost, and he says everything.
That does make sense.
Could be.
Because we do have that scene at the end where he snaps his fingers, and then it's that orange...
Yeah.
Conveniently orange
she's like,
space.
what did it cost? He's like, everything. Yeah. So
Well,
that's
and that's
possible.
something too so there, Jordan gave out the theory that she thinks that once we get to this point where everything kind of plays out, Gamora could be back. We destroy the Soul Stone, then her soul comes back, and then so she is able to come back. We know there's Guardians 3 coming out, so it makes sense that she would come back. But she's the only one of the Guardians that dies outside of the snap.
Yeah.
So it
When
makes
is
sense.
Guardians 3 coming out?
There's a Guardians
2020?
3.
2020.
Is it 2020?
2020, because that's the movie where Adam Warlock comes in.
Okay, yeah.
Because he's supposed to be, not the villain, but one of the main conflicts of that movie.
The people thought he would have the Soul Stone, because apparently in all the comics...
Yeah, because everyone's talking about how, like, that's how he was getting made in the birthing pods with the Soul Stone. That's what I thought was going to happen.
That's what a lot of people thought, because in every version of the universe, at some point he has it. At some random point in the sequence, he ends up with it. Apparently. That's what I
I mean, maybe he comes in. Maybe he comes in early for Avengers 4 before Guardians 3, and he takes the Soul Stone and leaves.
I think if we might see a tease post credits for Captain Marvel, because it's the last. That'd be the last one, literally like 2 months before the next Avengers film. Which I think this one, because Captain Marvel is not supposed to be the thing that protects and defeats Thanos. Like,
Isn't it supposed to be Adam Warlock?
Yeah, Warlock is the only thing that's able to prevent it, and so I'm just like, I'm okay if Captain Marvel is the one that does it, just because it'd be cool and different, and they don't have to stick to the comics. But you can't tease Warlock and have nothing when he is so closely tied. Like, if you look at the Infinity War, or the Infinity War, but the Infinity Gauntlet series, like, he is a major player. Like, he is the number one player in the entire thing outside of the heroes that we have. And so for him to not be in it at all just seems weird. So I think he's got to be in it before Guardians 3.
I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But they could also be planning to save him for a future big group up movie.
It could be.
With another big player, because they're still now they have Sony, they have Galactus that can come in. Or they might not even kill off Thanos at the end of 4, and he could come back. We don't know what they're going to do.
Silver Surfer's going to show up, and it's just like, hey, I'm back.
Silver Surfer's going to show up at the end of Avengers 4.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh my god.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep going here. So Vormir, we kind of alluded to it a bit, but we didn't actually talk about what actually happened. So Thanos is standing on the top of this mountain, and Red Skull says, in order to get the Soul Stone, you must give up the one thing that you love the most. You have to sacrifice. And you see Thanos starting to cry, and Gamora kind of just hits him, like, just is like, ha ha ha, universe says no, and you finally told no, you finally can't do what you want. And she's like, I don't buy those tears at all. He's like, what do you have to cry for? And Red Skull says he's not crying for him.
As soon as he said, they're not for him.
They're not for him.
My heart sank because I knew exactly
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But when he said that, it was like, oh, it's real. And the slow motion of him grabbing her by the arm and, like, her trying to, like, hit him off was just, sucked. And then he throws her, and he's crying, and she's falling, and then all of a sudden we see her just sitting at the
And
bottom.
you see blood.
Yeah.
Yep.
You do see blood around her head, which I was like, that's a really...
And they cut the sound, which is a thing that they did that made it really dramatic, and I appreciated it.
I also like how it was quick, because like they could have really dragged it out, and like him holding her over the edge, and like them saying a goodbye or something, but they
He just tossed her.
He just
He
tossed
knew
her
what he had to do.
because he knew he couldn't. He might, because I don't think he would have been able to do it.
Yeah, if he
got thrown out.
hesitated, no, there was no way he'd be able to do it.
I think it reinforces his character that like he makes decisions and he follows them through. He doesn't second guess. Like, I have to do this. I'm gonna do it. And does it.
He kind of second guesses a few times in this movie. I
Does
feel
he?
like, well, yeah, like because when Captain America gets in for that final like few little jabs and then tries to hold the gauntlet back, like when you see his face, he kind of has a bit of like
He's confused.
he's
as to
he's
what's
a bit
going
of
on.
hesitation. I feel
Yeah.
like in that moment he like realizes how desperate they were trying to stop him. Maybe even for like the quickest moment, he's thinking maybe he's not in the right here, but then he finally follows through and just bashes him in the face. Which
It's a small moment.
It's
a very quick moment, but
yeah.
it's a still like they make a point to show Captain America trying so hard, and they make a big point to show him like not because he didn't look angry, he didn't look sad, he didn't look upset or like happy that they were struggling so hard. He looked a bit conflicted. He looked as if he wasn't quite sure what he was doing is right for a moment, but then as soon as he punched him in the face, and as soon as he got the stone, he finally like, yeah, this is right.
Well, that kind of takes us, I think, into Titan. We do have a lot with Wakanda, but I think we can talk about Wakanda all at once because it kind of little things here and there happen, but it kind of jumps to a point where I think we can talk about it as once. So at Titan, we see Iron Man, Strange, and
Peter,
and Peter Parker show up because this is where they crash.
I mean the Guardians.
Yeah, and they crash here, and so they're like, okay, and then all of a sudden, Star-Lord and Drax and Mantis are there, and there's a pretty cool fight. It was almost like another like Civil War. It was like, hey, we're seeing these guys fighting each other. And so what happens is you get a kind of a Mexican standoff where it's like you've got each of them are almost ready to shoot the other or dismantle the other, and then by happenstance you find out that they're all against Thanos, and they're like, oh, who are you? I'm like, we're the Avengers. Like, what do you think? Who are you? Or like, we're the Guardians. And they're like, oh, because you really realize that, again, we're so used to seeing all these characters, you don't realize that they've never actually interacted, even though it feels like they have.
Right.
So you're playing this up, and it's like, okay, and you start to figure out what's going on. And again, as we alluded to earlier, there's this idea of a power struggle between Tony Stark and Peter Quill. They're both used to being the number ones, and now they're being told, like, hey, there could be someone else with a better idea. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, just because Star-Lord's never really been up against anybody. Like, he's never really had to before this movie, because he's dealt with Thor, he's dealt with now Iron Man. I think the only one that he really doesn't interact with is Captain, as far as like the big leadership type guys. Where do you think though that he stands up in it? Because it is technically his plan that almost gets the Infinity Gauntlet away from Thanos. So where do you think he lines up as far as like a leadership role in comparison to what your other three main guys?
I think it's really interesting if you look at the internal mechanics of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because I think Quill has this thing where he's pulling double duty as the leader because he's both clever and he's like the heart of the team, basically. Yeah. And he gets a lot of mileage out of being the heart in a lot of his role. But then, like, he is the one of the Guardians that comes up with the plan because he's clever. It's not that he's, like, a master strategist like, Captain America, or that he's, like, super intelligent like Tony Stark. It's that he's clever and, like, he knows generally how to survive.
Yeah, it was a... I had some issues with the coordination they just seemed to have after being there for half an hour. That Strange was just magicking portals everywhere, and they were jumping in at the
magic,
all the magic
punch.
It was a great sequence. It was a great sequence to watch. In terms of Quill's organizational thing, I mean, it could have been anyone's plan. It was a great plan. and then he ruined it.
I was gonna say that's the funny part about it.
Waited 5 minutes.
This awesomely like coordinated fight that works very well. He got emotional, and it's like of all the times to lose it, could have waited.
But that's perfectly within his character, though.
It is.
Oh, it is.
Emotion has always driven Peter so hard. So I'm not. So everyone, because I kept reading online, everyone's like, "That's so like out of character for Peter. Like he ruined the plan and all this and all that." I'm like, but his whole force was emotion. Like it was loss of his mother that forced him to go. Like got him into space and that kept him going.
Having
like,
to kill his father.
For having to kill his father. The moment he found out his father killed his mother, he didn't even hesitate. He just shot him like 7 times in the face.
And it's that emotional drive, I think, if you look at that moment where he realizes that his father killed his mother, and it like the camera does that like
I forget the term, but
rack focus.
Yeah.
Yes. And he just automatically just starts. He doesn't even know he's doing it at that point. He just automatically just starts shooting him.
So I mean, they've always kind of played with the whole emotions take over any impulse things, but
Well, and they give him. He talks about it in this too. It's that human side of him. Is yes, he is part celestial, but he is human, and the human aspect always takes over in every situation. But that's also good because the human aspect is what makes him relatable, and it makes him, have the opportunity to really play up this unpredictability, which works in his favor. But in this time, the human aspect actually kills him and everybody else.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know of all the characters that were in that fight, I don't know who wouldn't have kind of lost it a little bit.
Yeah,
Depending on who, like, if it was the person that they cared most for, I feel like Iron Man would have done the same thing. Peter definitely would have done the same thing because he's still younger.
Oh yeah, Iron Man definitely would have.
Iron Man's one of the quickest ones. Like,
Yeah.
he tried to kill Captain and Bucky because of his mom. I'm pretty sure if like he's like I killed Pepper too, he would have been first to try to blast his face off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the sequence itself I thought was very well put together. Again, I don't know because we looked at earlier where you have Strange and Iron Man who could not work together at all in the first New York fight, and now all of a sudden it's probably one of the more coordinated fights we've seen in the entire 18 movies. Just very with how many moving pieces it had. It looked cool. It was just not maybe the most believable. Because they didn't have that much time to coordinate it too, but it seemed like it had to be. It
seemed like the only real people that had to work together was Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, though, which could have been just Spider-Man.
But the timing of it too, with like Mantis at a certain point getting on top of his head, and Drax hit him from behind a couple times. Like,
well, Drax only actually, if I'm remembering the fight correctly, because I could be remembering it wrong, but it's just they're fighting, and then for a while Spider-Man's distracting him, jumping through all these portals, which could be a spider sense of why he's able to do this so well.
Yeah.
And then he's fighting, and then as soon as Thanos grabs him and puts him down, then Drax comes in for an attack. I feel like nobody else really starts jumping in until another person needs them to get off. So like they're all kind of just they're waiting for their moment, and Mantis doesn't even come in until Thanos can't move.
Yeah.
So
And if I was to argue against my own point of the coordination, Strange has seen 14 million versions of this fight at this point, so maybe he knows roughly where the portals should go.
Yeah.
And at what points he should put them there.
It is cool to see the interactions with Strange, with the stepping stones that he did with Quill, which that was cool, and then also with the portals. I think it's kind of one of those things that we really wanted to see more of that. We didn't see a whole lot of how they interact, how their powers interact. In this movie, like there wasn't a whole lot of. It was more like you do your thing, I'll do mine, and we'll do it at the same time. Not like my thing helps you do something. Here and there we got it, but this is really where it kind of showed the most, I think.
Well, the other thing is we've got 3 major characters who have different powers than the last time we saw them. Spider-Man has a whole brand new suit that's apparently extremely intuitive, that has extra arms and legs and functionality. Stark's suit can now do anything, including turn his feet into a rocket booster. The physics is baffling, but we'll gloss over that bit.
It's a superhero film.
It is, but up until that point, it was so realistic. Like the first one where he's building the suit and the suits are coming in pieces. Okay, I'm buying it up into the component parts. And he goes, nanites! We're just nanites. It seems like at some point in technology, every show or film series just gets to nanites and goes, we'll leave it there, and now everything's magically possible.
I think in this movie, though, you kind of have to just let nanites be the excuse of why everything's so good. Because I don't think the first Iron Man suit, or even the Civil War Iron Man suit, would have stood a chance against anything.
Not. No, and it is story justified. But like as an Iron Man fan, like I'm right in the same boat with you, where like the tech has always been a really big draw. My favorite part of any Iron Man film is when the suit starts doing its thing and coming on and like assembling and all of that.
Yeah.
And then in New York, when you just see it just like transition like nanite style, just go all over him, I was like, okay, that's basically magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like you're digitizing something that was mechanical.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just didn't feel right.
The Wakandan suit, like the Black Panther suit, yes, it's not a suit, but it's a suit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy the suit. It just was a suit, but the one that becomes, it's your handy dandy Iron Man Swiss Army suit. It just comes in 19,000 different varieties. Yes, it was great to watch and it was lovely to see. It's taking it a little bit beyond the, I know MCU superhero film.
Plus, it's also Tony Stark. He's Tony Stark.
Tony Stank.
He always like when he. I'm pretty sure he got new Wakandan technology info, at least when the Wakanda opened itself up to the world. He would obviously take that information and run like a whole mile with it as far as he could.
Sure. So hopefully that, and then Strange as well. I mean, back to the Avengers, like Strange has transitioned so much further from the Dormammu fight at the end of Strange to now, and like he's had training and time. I get that he's had a lot of time. Point intended, but he seems to have progressed, and that was the problem I had with Strange. He seemed to have gone from 0 to 9,000 within a matter of hours, weeks, months, whatever it might be, before he had the Time Stone, and that was one of the things I was disconnected with in that. But the heroes we saw in the last movies some of them are very different to now.
Some of them are very, very different. It's the ones that seem to not have changed that much are the ones that we've just recently seen. Thor doesn't seem to be all that different. Black Panther surely isn't. You don't get a whole lot of difference in Hulk. I mean,
Hulk is Hulk. Guardians are the Guardians. I mean, really across the board. They added Mantis, but that's about it.
Yeah, but I think that you look at the major differences are all of the characters we haven't seen since Civil War. Your Iron Man, because he's very different. Peter Parker hasn't really been part of it for only a couple of movies. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. And really interesting to see how it's been from those movies to now as far as where the audience's loyalties lie. Like, everybody loves every single one, but there's some that you're like, oh, please, God, don't let something happen to. And in this fight, you start to see, I think, that in the crowd, people are starting to feel like something bad could happen, which does eventually, because as they get to the very end of this fight, this is when he's like, all right, where's Gamora? Star-Lord asks. And just buzzkill Nebula is like, oh, she's gone, because he came back. He has the Soul Stone, and she didn't come back with him. And so then he's like, tell me, what happened to her? And she's like, yeah, she's gone. And he just starts punching him in the face, like wakes him out of the trance, and then that's where Mantis like flies off, and then it's done. Like there's just no coming back from this because he now has 5 of the 6 and is, literally nearly impossible to beat.
Yeah, when he goes and like because at this point now he's actually angry. He's actually trying to win the fight because I feel like in every single fight up until this point, he's kind of just
toying.
He's not necessarily toying, just more like I need to get there, and you're kind of just in my way. Like when he grabs Peter and calls him an insect, I feel like that's how we've used pretty much every fight he's been in at that point. Just kind of an inconvenience, but at this point they almost won. He's like, I need to get serious now. So he uses his gauntlet, grabs the moon, throws shards of the moon down onto the planet. Probably my favorite moment in the Titan battle. And then Doctor Strange gets up and they have their awesome fight because Thanos breaks the mirror dimension. I don't know how many people caught that.
Yeah,
he throws the mirror dimension at him. He punches it, breaks it, and then absorbs all of that energy and shoots kind of like a black hole singularity kind of thing at Doctor Strange. That was...
Well, when you control space and reality, mirror dimension...
You can do whatever you want, but that was still just really cool to see him actually start using the stones.
And again, it comes back to the point of you've taken this thing that Doctor Strange had that was, we can just put a mirror dimension, nothing bad can happen. And you normalize Strange now. Strange is now on the same level.
Like, they've done a
as
really
Thanos.
good job of taking all these people that had, like, everyone was like, Doctor Strange is overpowered, Thor's overpowered, all these characters are just way too strong. How are you even going to have a villain who can compete with that? And then they just casually like, oh yeah, this is not a problem for him anymore.
Yeah.
They power scaled so well in this movie.
What I really liked about the fight aspect after he broke out was that you really started to see him select his moments of which stones to use, because you saw like every time he used a certain stone, that color would come from it. So if he was, punching something with strength, he was using the power stone and it was purple. And it was like he was making these decisions throughout the fight, like to do this and then this and then this, and really just started to see the complexity of this gauntlet and all the different powers that come with it. He doesn't just get to do anything he wants. He's got to know how to use it. And that's why I think this aspect of the amount of strength and will that it takes to wield multiple stones, because the amount of it nearly kills you. Like, because if you don't know how to use it, you literally the reality stone alone should be able to destroy anything. The power stone alone, all these different things. So I think it was pretty cool. I liked seeing the different ways of him using it. And this is where we think we're gonna finally say goodbye to one of our characters. We see Tony getting stabbed after a very short
Horrible
little
beatdown. Oh
yeah,
that was one of the
takes
most
him
brutal
down.
moments of the movie.
And Tony is in this little skirmish. It's not very long, but he's using pretty much everything possible that he has. He puts, I don't know what it is, but it's like almost like this mass, this like mechanical mass in Thanos' hand in the gauntlet, so he can't close it because he has to actually make the fist to be able to utilize any of the stones, and so he can't. And so at that point, then he's like, he puts his foot down, it locks around Thanos' like his foot or his arm, so he basically gets to punch him as hard as he wants. And you see this little cut with a little speck of purple blood come out of Thanos, and the line, all that for a drop of blood. And then you're like, oh, well, he's done. You're like, yeah.
That fight's over.
He gave him everything he could, and literally gets a single drop of blood. And Tony gets stabbed. I thought he was done. Really thought he was done.
Dead. That happened. My whole theater, both times, just dead silence. I heard one person go, like, just breathe in real heavily. And
heavy sigh.
The sound cut out and everything. And I was like, this is, the first time I saw it, this is his death. This is over.
Yeah.
It's going to be...
And I was okay with it.
Because there's also that whole speech, like, Thanos gave him, too. Like, you have my respect. I'm going to wipe out half of humanity. I hope the other half, I hope they remember you.
Yeah.
Because, like, he was worthy to fight him. And then he's about to do it with the stone, and then Doctor Strange saves his life with giving him the time stone.
Which, we'd kind of talked about it beforehand, but why do you think he does it?
I think, all the 14 million futures he saw the one where they win. So I think he's like, I know I have to let him take the time stone to let him win, and then at the end game is when we'll win. And I don't think it's because it's Tony Stark's being alive.
Yeah, no, he knows that he has to give him the stone. Because he did say, like, after the fact, after everything was going on and after the snap, I had to. It was the only way. Because that's the only one that he saw. So there's something to it.
Yeah, because people wanted to theorize, like, I think it's because, like, they know Iron Man has to live in order to be Thanos. I'm like, no, I don't think that's it. I think Thanos is going to go down by his own accord. I think Thanos is going to get so eaten up by the guilt of everything he's done. I think he's gonna beat him.
Well, Thanos is not nearly as powerful anymore. If you remember, by the end, the gauntlet's
wrecked,
shattered. Yeah.
He can still use it though.
Yeah,
can he?
He teleported out. Don't you remember?
But see, I want to see. I think that teleportation was his own power.
I don't think so.
Because he uses it with the Power Stone. The Power Stone wouldn't give him that.
No, he used it with his Tesseract, the Space Stone.
Oh, the Space Stone?
Yeah, you still see him like clench his fist and then he flies back. I think he can use each stone individually. I don't think he can use them as a collective anymore.
That's what
I think has happened.
So, well, and so let's jump there. He leaves Titan and goes to Wakanda, and we need to now talk about Wakanda, our last major place. So Wakanda is the site of the final major battle. They're there because they know that essentially the technology there may be able to remove the
Mind Stone.
The Mind Stone from Vision. There is a possibility, because there are multiple layers, that even if you take that away, Vision could still be Vision, just with a small part of him removed, as opposed to just destroying the Mind Stone and destroying Vision at the same time. So they go there, try to get the technology to do it with, what's her name? Shuri, the younger sister from Black Panther, and she's starting to work on it, but she needs time, and as soon as she starts working on that, that's when all of the creatures from Thanos' army show up. All right, so this is a good point for us to take a quick little break. Everybody go to the lobby, get a refill on your pop, your popcorn, your Sour Patch Kids, and anything else you're looking for. Go to the bathroom, and we will see what is coming up soon from Eventide.
You know, there's nothing quite as satisfying as a good conversation with intelligent company. Join comedian Don Smith every week as he sits down and talks with comedians, actors, filmmakers, writers, and everyday schmoes. It's The Life with Don Smith, Wednesdays at noon on 106.9 FM, and now available on the Eventide Entertainment podcast feed every Friday on Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes. The weekend is over. Monday is here, but that doesn't have to be the end of your fun. Every week, Ellison Smith brings you a new episode of Saltwater Gaming, breaking down video games of all different genres, consoles, platforms, and eras. Get it all every Monday on Saltwater Gaming, brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.
We also do have Winter Soldier back. Bucky Barnes is back with a new arm, which I thought was kind of funny. It had like the Black Panther gold woven into it.
He's been rearmed.
I'm
sorry, someone had to do it.
Oh man.
Well, that was handy.
I don't know what time that is in the podcast, but someone's gonna put a comment and be like,
I don't want to point fingers or anything.
Oh, jeez.
My goodness.
Oh,
they're all giving
I also
me,
like how he got the arm.
for all the listeners, they're all giving me the cold shoulder now.
Oh goodness.
Well, they haven't stopped listening by now.
I like how he got the arm. I like how Black Panther's like, he's tired from war, but it's time for him. He's done. He's rested enough. He brings the arm. Bucky's first response is, "Where's the fight?" Because he knows exactly what this means.
He knows.
Because like they could have done like a Marvel cliche, I guess you could say at this point, to have some weird, funny banter, but they know the tone of the movie. They know exactly what's supposed to, like.
Yeah.
They kept it in check, and they're like, "Where's the fight? What's going to happen next?"
Bucky's never been like the banter sort of
Well,
character.
He might have like a one-line or one written off or something, but they could have easily just had a little bit of comedic there, and they did, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to get at the point now where we know something big is going to happen. It's kind of we just don't know how. And so the Bucky's back. Shuri is working on Vision, and Scarlet Witch is staying there because the moment that the stone gets removed, they are going to just you need Scarlet Witch to destroy it. We do though see that the army has shown up, and that's when we do finally get the little bit of the line. It's a little different, but the line of "Get this man a shield," and it's a Wakandan shield. It's not anything resembling his shield, which makes me. That's what really makes me think that he's Nomad now. There's no Captain America. There's no circular shield. That's long gone.
Plus, also the shield he gets is probably way more useful.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because like it's on the arm, it can come and go as he pleases, so he's not always forced to carry a shield. Plus, it's got the point at the top, so it looks like he's actually able to stab with it as well. Because you see him do that as well.
I think the Cap shield is going to be the crowning glory of the next one. I think
it's gonna be when he and Tony reconnect.
Yes.
Tony's gonna give him the
because they
shield
haven't
back,
met
and
yet.
It'll be a moment.
There's been no interaction between Captain America and Iron Man yet, and Avengers 4 is gonna have it, and I'm so excited for what they're gonna do with it.
I'm not, because I think it's going to be once they meet, they're both going to die. I think it's going to be like a moment that we'll have, like, of the Brotherhood they've forgiven each other, but as a result of that, when they'll go into battle, that's it. Like,
I think Cap will sacrifice himself for Tony.
I don't think that's what they're gonna do to end the story. I don't think that's what's gonna happen. But I mean, I don't know.
You're assuming it ends.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
You had. I mean, we are assuming that in order for a character to no longer be in the movies, they have to die, which isn't necessarily true.
Oh, that's not what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I think Captain America's story ends completely different from how they're probably ever going to do it. But I mean,
Cap needs to die, though. I think because he's right now he's a hero without a country because he's nomad.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to have something. To come full circle, he needs to sacrifice himself for whatever, either it be friendship, for a cause, for the rest of the Avengers, something like that, because no one else is noble enough to do that.
Well, I think he's going to sacrifice, I say in quotes for the people that can't see me do it, he's going to sacrifice himself to bring Bucky back.
Put your clothes back on,
which
John.
is which I think is going to be, I think it's going to be a big thing for pretty much everyone in the Avengers 4, is that most of the original cast is going to sacrifice themselves to the Soul Stone for the people who were lost to come back. Like Iron Man would give himself up for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Captain America give himself up for Bucky, and then Scarlet Witch give himself like stuff like that. I also that's probably what's going to happen. What I would like to happen is they somehow destroy or damage or do something to the Infinity Gauntlet, and then that causes a big ripple effect to the whole universe, and it actually sends Captain America back to when he sacrificed himself in World War II. They can even do it in like a different reality or whatever they want to do with it, so they can write it off to where he's not affecting the timeline of the MCU. But I think it'd be perfect for his character if he fought all this battle, fought all this time, and he finally gets to go back and live his life with Peggy. He gets to make it to the one dance that he was supposed to make it to. Because I feel like time has been the biggest enemy of Captain America this whole series. He's a man who lost his whole life to 70 years, and now this is a perfect way to write him back in to get that to end his character, to give him that peaceful end that he deserves.
Yeah, I'm gonna save some theories. Let's because there's plenty.
There's so many.
Oh my god. Okay, let's
we gotta keep going.
Let's finish up Wakanda here. Hell, we haven't barely started it. So at this point, we see this huge fight, and we have Midnight and Obsidian who show back up, who are there at the wall, the Wakandan like force field. And they start kind of like touching it with their swords, and you realize they're not getting through. And you have almost like the old school leaders of two armies meet in the middle, see if they can kind of talk something out. Clearly, that's not going to happen. They go back, and he says there's going to be bloodshed over this, and she's like, "We have blood to shed. We've got blood to spare," which is these huge like cone pods that
Space
are just
dogs.
Like what?
The Space Dogs.
Space dogs,
as Rocket calls them.
I felt like they were the Chitauri. Almost, but they were similar, but they weren't quite the same.
They felt more bestial.
Yeah, it felt more like it was like the
scarier than the Chitauri. I love those design of those aliens.
Yeah, I mean, and they made sense that when you start to see them like pouring to the force field, and they're literally giving themselves up in order to they're killing themselves in order to try to get through, and some are getting through. And this is where you start to see them going around. And they're like, basically, if they get through on the backside, Vision's done. Like, there's no way of protecting him. So T'Challa makes this point, saying, "All right, open up the force field, and this one section, we're going to go and we're going to let them through, and just try to basically say, all right, we're going to funnel them back into the front of us." And this is where this huge fight happens. I mean, you see everybody get to do their thing. Everybody has their moment. War Machine drops bombs. Falcon picks people up and throws them.
It was so great to see Black Panther and Captain America both run. Like, Captain America's running, and he's running so fast, he catches up to Black Panther in the front, and they both jump over the little river so casually. And they're the first ones in, just starting to pummel people. That was great to watch.
Mm-hmm. And you see, we've got Banner in the Hulkbuster armor, and he's loving it. He's having a good old time, and he trips.
And then Okoye
and
kind of gives him a condescending look because he's just having too much fun.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone has their moment. It's kind of cool. And then this is though where things kind of go south because Glaive isn't dead. Seems like Glaive is dead, but Glaive shows up and he waits until basically things look like they're done on the field. Scarlet Witch goes down and we didn't talk about this. So where did the spinning rotors come into play?
They came under the barrier. So
were they from the?
They were from the ship.
They were from the ship.
They came under the field and they popped up, and then that's when Scarlet Witch decided she needed to go help because they couldn't defend against that.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was like basically like the tractor things that basically
like combine blades.
Yeah, combine blades. Yeah.
Because that pulls her out of the protective point. Then he sneaks into the lab to go after Vision. Mm-hmm. And then she interrupts the fight between
Midnight and
Widow
and
Okoye.
Yeah, because then it becomes the three of them, and then
which I don't get. Like, it seems like the only people that can fight female bad guys is female heroes. Like, I don't.
It's sexist if you don't. Deadpool calls it out when he's like, he? In one of the sequences in Deadpool when he's going through.
He's like, "Is it sexist to hit you? Is it sexist not to hit you?
I'm so confused. I don't know." Oh.
Well, because it's like,
because he's cocking his gun while he says this.
Yeah. I mean, you can. I mean, if someone's going to destroy the world, I don't care if they have something between their legs or not. Like, you probably should punch them. I don't know.
Right.
But no, it's, again, in Avengers, you have Midnight, and she has to be defeated by women, which is also weird because women are also not fighting. The female heroes are not fighting the male villains in this one, really. Not a whole lot.
I mean, they kind of fight Glaive in the Scotland scene. They kind of fight, but a little bit. But it's more like.
But again, though, Glaive and Vision end up on the roof.
Although I think the point is, though, Glaive's mission was to go get Vision, while Midnight was to distract Scarlet Witch. Yeah. I think because he had the spear that could actually pull it out.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it was just a matter of they knew every person had their objective in this fight. And I think that's why they kind of separate them, because also Captain America and Black Panther are a little too focused on fighting the hordes of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So that I don't know if that's like why they separate like that or whatever reason they want to, but that's how I see it in the story. That's why I didn't really get bothered by it.
Was it that point they got overwhelmed, or did Vision get kicked out of the office first?
Vision got kicked out first.
No, at this point they get over.
It's the rotors that come up.
The rotors come up and it kind of destroys the shield.
And and that's when Scarlet Witch decides that she needs to go down and help. Then because Midnight says she's out, and that's when Glaive goes in.
And Glaive goes in, and then as they're fighting, and they get separated, which is that's getting them separated is what causes them to get overwhelmed, and then Thor comes in.
Yeah,
and the most badass entrance in the whole movie. I feel like
I didn't realize this. I missed it, but the Stormbreaker actually also contains the power of the Bifrost.
Yeah, because he says that it's powerful enough to. It's made for a king. Power enough to make the Bifrost, and then him come in with it, and you don't see him turn into that outfit and then go. You just see him. You see him like kind of sparkles, Captain Spark. Call Stormbreaker, and then they just go.
Yeah.
So to see him in that whole outfit completed with the sleeves and the awesome cape and everything, that was really satisfying to watch.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen that.
And then Rocket and Groot going and just kicking ass too.
Oh, Rocket with Bucky.
That was great.
That was such a nice little
How much for the gun? It's not for sale. How much for the arm?
I'll get that arm.
I want to get that arm.
Which again, throwback to the first guy. He's like, I need that guy's leg. You got the leg? I was kidding. I didn't need the leg at all.
Or with Groot, I am Groot.
Or with
Steve
Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
That was so lovely.
I just love when Thor arrives, and like as soon as Banner sees Thor arrive, he's like, "You guys are so screwed now."
Because then he just jumps up with like his eye, because he actually finally learned how to use his powers, and like he jumps up, lightning's everywhere, and his eyes are like going all. I don't know how to describe it, like Raiden. Avatar state.
Raiden.
Yeah,
Raiden. That's a much better feeling. Just comes down with the axe and just slams, and everywhere just blows away. And I'm like, there's a chance they got it.
Yep. But this is when we see. Thanos basically shows up, and we get a moment where Scarlet Witch is trying to figure a way still to protect Vision, and Vision's like, he's here, it's now or never.
Yeah, because they've killed the whole Black Order at this point. They've all died.
Yep, the Black Order, because we have the Hulkbuster outfit.
Hulkbuster
brings him up and takes him right into the
shield.
Yeah, the glove takes him into the shield.
And then Proxima gets thrown into one of those tractor combines.
And it has Glaive die.
Glaive dies because Cap goes over to distract him to tell Vision to leave, and then as he's getting choked out, Vision stabs him with that spear.
Yeah. So the Black Order has been completely killed off by this point.
And then the callback to "We Don't Trade Lives" comes back because we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah,
when they're deciding to go
concept.
to Wakanda, Vision keeps telling them, "Guys, just destroy it. Don't worry about me. Destroy it." And Cap's like, "No, we don't trade lives.
Yeah, it's not one for one or one for anything. We're gonna
try to save everyone."
Yeah.
And that comes back, which I thought was really
and
nice.
that was a cool callback. Yeah, and they have a couple of those throughout the movie, but this one starts to hit home. But then again, you have the weird feeling. Everyone's looking around. It seems like everything's going to be okay until Thanos shows up. And at this point, he has all of the stones except for the Mind Stone. And there's this moment with Vision and Scarlet Witch where it's heart-wrenching because he says it's not fair. You shouldn't have to do this, but you do. And it's this idea of like he knows that she's the only one that can do this, and he knows if she doesn't do this, then it's over.
Yeah.
So she starts doing her power
disruption of the molecular structure of the gem, whatever science they tried throwing into it.
Mm-hmm. And it starts to break it down, but it's taking time. And basically you have every single one of the heroes step in one by one to try to slow down Thanos, and one by one they're just getting...
Yeah, because Hulkbuster gets thrown into the mountain and stuck in it.
Yep.
Black Panther.
He's using his Gauntlet Stone powers with each of them because he like phases Hulk through him and then phases him into to the mountain.
Yeah. Question: why didn't he just stop time and walk over and rip Vision's head off?
Because cinematic universe.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right.
And also, he doesn't need to. He's Thanos, and he has
he
five of
has
the
five
six Infinity
stones.
Stones.
Again, the whole he thinks everyone's kind of an insect to him. He's coming in, he's just like pushing them all to the side, like I'm getting that stone.
The God complex is
He's
really
very
showing
efficient.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
And so he goes one by one, and essentially it comes down to Steve Rogers' last one. That is
the
there.
last attempt, and he holding that glove.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that moment Thanos kind of just he questions it a little bit for like a briefest second. He realizes he's just a human. He's holding me back. He's trying so hard, which I think he also has a bit of respect for Steve in that moment too, because I think he knows who Steve is because he knew who Tony was.
He knows who they all are.
I think he knows who they all are. So like he knows Steve, and he's got a bit of respect for him. Like he's still trying. I already brushed him aside. He's still trying. He's gonna but punch him in the face.
Doesn't Thanos at one point say, "You're not the only one burdened with knowledge"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he does know who all the Avengers are. And I thought that's when Steve would die, when he just takes that fist and just bashes him in the face onto the ground. I thought that was his death.
Yeah.
They didn't kill him that way.
Yeah.
Out.
And then this is where Wanda's Scarlet Witch is almost finished, and she's got to both hold off Thanos with one hand and finish off Vision with the other, and eventually then destroys the Mind Stone, thus saving the day. Except for you have a really just a dick move line from Thanos, and he's like, it's just, what does he say? Like,
he's
it's
like,
not.
It's like you're out of time, or like
not,
we're all out of time, or something like that. Something about time.
Yeah, and he does his hand and turns back time. He goes full share on us. Jeez. And,
so bad.
And yeah, essentially we see Vision come back
twice.
together.
That's so painful.
And that's I think that we were talking about earlier with Gamora and Star-Lord. That's another one of those like just real harsh moments because Scarlet Witch had to kill him. She killed the man she loved, and yet she said to see him die again. It's like she didn't have to do that,
and she has to live with that now.
Yeah, and that's rough.
And that was like not even talking about how he had to die twice, but the way he died a second time was just so. He like grabs his forehead, pretty much concaves his skull in to be able to pull it out. And just that's such a brutal way to go.
Just the juxtaposition between the two, because the first death was very like they're looking at each other in the eyes. They're very like, Wanda, I love you, Vision, I love you, and then like that whole moment, and then like this one's just like Thanos, like
because he's holding him up, and he's like, he knew there's nothing stopping him. He just pulls it out,
and then Vision actually, you saw this, but he goes like gray.
He goes gray, and his eyes like roll back to his head.
He becomes then just literally a computer. Yeah. Like he has no life to him. He's just a
it's the Windows 10 blue
screen
on his eyes.
So yeah, and at this point, then Thanos has the Mind Stone. He puts it in, kind of like has this rainbow vein thing going on with him because he literally has all of the powers, and that's where Thor
Thor comes in.
Comes in.
Which I don't know why he wasn't there before.
He
Because Steve
was-
makes a point saying, everyone on me, he's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Thor doesn't come.
He
I know
doesn't
he's
have-
destroying the ships.
He
I know
doesn't have comms. Thor didn't have comms.
That's true.
But if everyone's sensing Thanos is coming, why wouldn't Thor stop and then just go straight to where he
He was
doesn't
really
play?
far away though.
He's
He was
testing
destroying
that
all of the
axe out.
ships and.
That is true. If I
Yeah,
got a
he
brand new
was
toy
going
axe,
through.
I'm going to be playing with it a little. So I guess that makes sense, but like Thor, that whole thing, he was there. He's like, bring me Thanos, and then Thanos shows up, and he waits until after. Just seems a little bad time.
That and it is. I think part of it is just that it's so cinematic that we get this perception of the time being a lot more drawn out than it actually was. I think between the time that Thanos got there and the time that Thor showed up was actually a pretty short period.
It was
of time.
probably,
probably
like a
was.
minute. It's probably like a minute or two. So.
Yeah, and I think that's what
Which
that
is
was.
fine, but like still, it just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thor
Yeah.
showed up just like the wrong moment, like a minute earlier, and Thor would have been able to kill him.
Yeah.
If he'd gone for the head, he wouldn't have had a problem.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's
That was a pretty
that's
far
the
target,
line.
though. That was a pretty good shot hitting him at all.
Yeah.
Or
So-
if while Thanos was talking, Thor had reached over and like grabbed the gauntlet to keep him from closing it. Also could have
Something.
won.
Something would have been nice.
Yeah, but Thor always has to be a little cinematic, a little showboaty with his kills.
Yeah, and that's something he even says. Like at one point earlier in the movie, he says, "Fate has protected me through it all. Like I have so many people have come up and so many have fallen, to me." And so it's like he does. Of course, he does going to have the god complex. He is a god, so
Right.
he's going to not. He's doing the same thing Thanos is doing.
The difference is it backfires.
It does. He throws Stormbreaker into Thanos' chest and then starts driving it in and basically says, I told you I was going to kill you for that, talking about Heimdall and Loki. And he looks over at him, he's like, you should have aimed for my head.
And then
And snaps his finger. And right before he
snap.
snaps, Thor yells no. And it's just that moment where we've been waiting this whole time for this to happen. We know what this means.
Yeah, and he cuts to white, and I thought that's where the movie was going to end.
I
It was gonna
did
cut
too.
to white, and it was going to be over, and then it didn't. And it cuts to him, with Gamora, baby Gamora, right
Yeah,
there?
he's in the standing in
Yeah.
the water.
That's when I think he's in the Soul Stone. I
Yeah.
think he was in the Soul Stone because he gloves disappears. He doesn't have glove anymore.
Glove is off. And that's also, too, after you see the snap. After this discussion with Gamora, he says, what did you have to give up? Everything. You see him back on Wakanda, and the glove is completely just destroyed. It looks like all charred and broken. The stones are still intact. That's just a note. And then he goes back. He gets pulled back and disappears. Goes to enjoy the sunset that he says he wanted to enjoy after everything. And that's cool. That is actually in the comic. That's something that he does after he destroys half of the universe. He enjoys the sunset, which is kind of just dark and twisted and also kind of
Because that's like an ending
sentimental.
you could see in a superhero movie where like the good guy does that and he wins and he's happy. But
Mm-hmm.
to flip it with the villain doing that
Yep.
is just so.
Because, well, I mean, he is the main character of the film. We can talk all
Yeah.
you want about like
Oh, yeah.
Avengers and Captain America,
He's
but
the
all of that
protagonist.
stuff happens as like a satellite to him and his journey.
Yeah, and he's the protagonist because he's the main character. Everybody else, it's weird to say, but the Avengers are the antagonists of the film because they're not the bad guys, but they're trying to prevent him from doing the one thing he wants.
Right.
That's really glad they took that arc about it because normally your villains, I mean, maybe with the exception of Panther when they put the villain kind of in the driving seat a little bit more, but normally across the board your villains are we set up your good guy, find the bad guy somewhere and then have them fight and then you're going to have the good guy win normally. So it's nice to see that they put Thanos off the bat up front and said, hey, this is what I'm doing, and then things happening around me rather than the other way around.
After Thanos disappears back into his little shadowy area, we see everybody reacting to like what just happened. And our first person to actually die is Bucky. Bucky he says Steve, and he
And he just
kind of
disappears.
stumbles forward, and it's this ash. It's like this kind of like disappearing ash that he turns into, and then slowly, little by little, we start to see more of these characters. And it's heartbreaking. I actually think the second one, that the main character is actually Black Panther.
Yeah.
That one really
And
hit.
that one hit because you're like you said earlier, like
They had the balls to get rid of Black Panther, and that was really impressive.
yeah.
Because it only took like a couple of seconds, but the way they set the scene up was he was picking up another character, and he was like, "Now isn't like this
I thought
isn't the
that was
place to
gonna be
die."
like-
And everybody's expecting like, "Oh well, he's going to try and pick her up, and she's going to collapse into
to.
ash," and then he just is gone. and it would
And then Falcon dies while War Machine's looking for him, so they don't even know what happened to him.
Yep.
They just think he's missing.
Yep.
They don't think he's necessarily gone.
Yeah, and we see let's see, we have Falcon, Black Panther,
Groot
Bucky,
disappears,
Groot starts to disappear,
which is really sad.
Yeah, because he disappears right in front of Rocket, and Rocket's like, no, like the emotion
Because he already
of
lost
Rocket.
him once, he's gonna lose him a second time. That's really sad.
Yeah.
Because Rocket even says when they're going to get Thor his Stormbreaker, because he's like, "What if you're wrong? What if you can't beat him?" He's like, "Well, then what else I have to lose?" Rocket goes, "I got a lot.
I got a lot to lose.
I got a lot to lose," and he literally loses everyone.
Yeah. Wanda, also while holding Vision, she passes through. She turns into ash, and then we go over to Titan, and that's where we get even more people. We lose Drax and Mantis very quickly.
Star-Lord goes.
Star-Lord passes through. Doctor Strange, after saying that this is the only way, he turns to ash. And then the last one, which is probably
the most heartbreaking.
Oh god,
that one's the one that made me cry the most.
Spider-Man, Peter's sitting there and he says he doesn't feel so good, and you know at that point that he's gonna go, but he grabs onto Tony. He's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to die.
Mr. Stark, please, I don't want to go.
Yeah, and oh my god, it's like shit.
Because he falls to the ground. He's like, I'm sorry, Tony. He just disappears, and it's just like.
And I think it's less of the fact that it's like Spider-Man, but you're like, it's a kid dying, like, and a kid who's like teenager who hasn't lived a full life, who knows that they're dying, and it's just like, damn, Marvel, like hitting hard, not pulling any punches here.
That was brutal, but it was great.
And then you have Tony sitting there, and we kind of talked about this. What's it going to do to him? You know, he talks about how 6 years earlier he, went through the portal, and that changed him forever. And now he's, every moment since he's been trying to make up for something. He had the kid in Iron Man 3 that he was trying to deal with to try to make up for things, and then Peter Parker. So some sort of a dad complex that he's been fighting through this whole time. And
if you think about Civil War, Captain America Civil War, that whole thing basically started because the woman from Sokovia was like, my son was killed in as an incidental casualty, and that completely messed Tony up to where he became like 100% Accords all the time, and that set him against Captain America. This is a much more ingrained personal relationship that he has with Spider-Man. It's going to be
because he makes a point saying in Homecoming, if someone died, that's on you, but if you die, that's on me, because he brought him into this world. He brought him this suit. He's pretty much recruited him, and now Spider-Man's dead, and that's going to hit. I can't wait to see what they do with. Yeah,
that's going to be interesting to see how that starts out. And then we go back to Wakanda, and everybody's kind of like, "What's going? Like, it happened. He actually did it."
Captain America says something there.
What
does he go? Oh God!
Yeah, he's oh God.
He's like, oh God.
What are we gonna do? And then we literally go to credits, and it's just kind of one of those moments that, as opposed to, it doesn't feel like it feels like the movie's over. It feels like we just lost half of everybody, and we have nothing left to do, and it just feels like that's the absolute end, and the credits run, and it's literally they start playing everybody's name, and it feels like an in memoriam almost. And I think I kind of feel like that's how it was supposed to come off.
Because I listened to the score again for the after credits, and then I thought about what was going on, and it was like this because the music they chose specifically was kind of like a requiem, like sad, minor, very very depressing film, because they did that at the beginning too, with the music going into the Marvel logo.
Yeah.
Because it was first dead silent, which isn't like Marvel, and
Not
then
at
they go
all.
into the really dark, cheery music, and then you hear the Asgardian give out the distress signal.
Yeah.
So they let you know just through the music that it's a very different, very powerful movie.
Especially since, as soon as the snap happens and people start disappearing, no background music during that point.
You just hear the
the
leaves fading, it's like that ash sound. So that's it, and then our post credits are we see Nick Fury and Maria Hill, who are in the car going through, and then they all of a sudden see a car crash in front of them. They get out, and there's no one there, and
they start seeing destruction. They start seeing the real world effect of what Thanos just did.
Yeah, it's not just the heroes that are going; it's all these other people. Maria starts to fade through, and immediately Fury's like, "Oh no!" and he goes and grabs something. He sends it, and then a very, very Samuel L. Jackson moment. He
starts to fade.
Mother,
and then he fades away, and it's like, that was very appropriate. And then it drops onto what he was sending, and it is received, and then we see the red star, the red and the gold star insignia, thus kind of giving us this idea of Captain Marvel is on her way. And that's it. So let's look at a couple things before we start to wrap up here. We do this in some fashion every time we do a show. A character that you didn't get to see enough of that you wish you got to see more. We're going to twist it for this one, though. A character that died in this that you're going to miss the most. Assuming everybody that is gone is actually gone. It's a rough assumption to make, but character that you're going to miss the most.
I don't want to start. I don't want to go first.
That's... All right, I'll go first then. It's going to be, and this is cheating a little bit, it's a tie, I think, for me, between... I can't decide if it's either going to be Doctor Strange or a Black Panther.
Okay. Yeah. That's a tough one. I think me personally, I would probably say a character... It's got to be Spider-Man for me. Just because I've been waiting so long for a good Spider-Man, and I really feel like Tom Holland has started to make Spider-Man the Spider-Man that I've been wanting. The true, like, kid who finally gets some powers and really just doesn't know what to do with them, but wants to have fun. Just this conflict, and I think he's the youngest to play Spider-Man, which might actually have helped the situation. But yeah, if he were actually to be gone, which I don't think he will be, but if he were actually to be gone, that'd be a tough pill to swallow, to finally get Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then two movies later he's gone.
Yeah.
I agree with Spider-Man. The amount of potential that series has going forward is I think more than the others, but so I don't want to copy them. I'll pivot and say the Guardians, because they've crippled the Guardians.
Oh, yes.
Every Guardian except Nebula and Rocket.
Yeah, and that's it.
Gone.
So, and I would love to see a little crime fighting.
Which would be really
duo.
interesting if they kept all of them dead for Guardians 3. So it's just Rocket kind of flying around trying to... That'd be an interesting movie, him trying to recruit a whole new Guardians.
Trying to emotionally...
There are other Guardians out there, because they haven't played up. Realistically, the Guardians that they created never existed until they created them that way.
Yeah.
So usually the Guardians, Yondu is one of the originals, and there's a...
Wasn't it the original Ravagers that they showed in Guardians 2? Weren't they the original
some of them.
Guardians?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah.
So it could be him going to find them. It could be him trying to get Adam Warlock to help.
I don't know.
So if they did kept all the Guardians dead, that would be really interesting for Volume 3.
They won't. There's
won't.
no way.
No.
There's a reason why Guardians 3 comes after the next Avengers movie.
Oh man, Spider-Man's really sad. Spider-Man hit me the most emotionally because Tom Holland's acting was just so well in that. But I would say the one that kind of got me the most would probably be Winter Soldier, Bucky, because then he's talking to Steve, and Steve sees him go away. Steve sees him disappear. We're talking about 3. Let's see here. 1 Winter Soldier, Civil War, now Infinity War. We've seen 4 movies where Steve and Bucky have had this really close friendship, really close relationship, and all of this time he's been fighting to help keep Bucky alive, keep him around, and then just to see him disappear and there's nothing he can do about it. That's heart-wrenching.
That's tough.
Just for Steve be the one to feel his dust and just see him go away and just know that there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, and Bucky was Steve's last link to the 1940s, his past.
Again, why I would love if he could go back to the 1940s and get to end his story arc being sent back in time, but that probably won't happen. But I also did predict Spider-Man dying. I always kind of joked that Spider-Man would be killed off because I think all this. I kept saying, they're going to kill off all the side characters, the ones that have closer relationships to really main heroes, because that's really going to affect the main heroes emotionally. And everyone told me, no, they're going to kill off all the people who don't have contracts left. I'm like,
see,
I was right, but I really hate that I was right.
I wish we didn't know about the rest. I wish we didn't know what was coming next. I wish they hadn't gone. I know they want to go. Hey, follow us. We're going to make all these really cool movies, and that's great. The problem is, I know there's the Guardians 3. I know there's the Spider-Man 2. I know that these movies are coming. Therefore, I know these
Spider-Man
characters.
2 could be Miles Morales because he is in the universe.
I remember
that. Because I will no longer think Marvel has a one-track mind plan.
Well, and that's the thing too, is they know what they're doing, but they haven't released anything really outside of.
They've released some Captain Marvel stuff. I
yes,
think.
but I'm saying as far as future plans.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing in Phase 4 outside of the Guardians 3 and
Spider-Man 2, Doctor Strange 2.
Those are the only two that are actually out. There's an untitled Spider-Man Homecoming sequel and Guardians 3.
I thought there was a Strange 2.
It's not on. Well, it's not on Wikipedia, which doesn't mean anything. But Wikipedia's usually up to date.
Well, I'll go on and change it right now. Just give me 2 minutes.
So, I mean, and that's the thing too, is Spider-Man Homecoming sequel definitely does not have to be Peter. Guardians 3 doesn't have to be the full Guardians. There are a lot of ways they could go with it. I don't know. And Guardians 3 could even take place technically before,
It could be like the Ravager story.
Yeah,
it could be anything
we don't know any of this. So, I mean, I don't think we can make any assumptions. They have talked about Black Panther, and there's no way they're not doing another Black Panther movie, just for everything that they had as far as just the diversity of it and just the power and just how amazing it was for film in general, but for their franchise. They're going to do another one, but there's a few characters that I think are going to stay dead.
I feel, because they took more characters than people are still alive. Mm-hmm. They took over half.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be a matter of every Avenger gets to go into the Soul Stone or whatever they want to do to bring people back.
Something,
but
maybe.
One person gets to come back. So they're going to have to choose who they want to come back. So not everyone gets to.
Maybe that's way of thinning the herd a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, we need to definitely get some of these gone. Just because we've got so many characters, we're going to continue to add more. Captain Marvel's coming. I think we're going to be very quickly seeing a Miss Marvel movie with the success of Black Panther. I think that Miss Marvel is going to be there. So Kamala Khan, which I think would be an awesome movie if they're able to pull it off. We're getting all of these little things that are pointing us toward these non-traditional major characters. Because if Deadpool and Black Panther and all these others can do well, even Ant-Man, they're going to push.
Plus, they're also going to be bringing in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
It'd be great if every single character ever in the Marvel Universe in the comics could come together in a movie, but it's not realistic for a film.
Even comics kill off some characters. They bring them back when they want to, but
they did. But I don't think at any point in the Marvel comics they've had every single character that was ever made in one thing together. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, it's just they do crossovers, but there's certain levels of expectations with it.
So which makes me sad because eventually it's the end is coming for some people. And it's just really going to be.
It's going to be rough once we actually see the final credits roll on Avengers: Infinity War Part 2. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Your final thoughts. I'll give each of you opportunity to kind of just wrap up what you think's coming next and what you thought of this movie overall. And then let's do a ranking. Each week we do a ranking of 1 to 5, but I think this one kind of demands a 1 to 6, and we'll go 1 to 6 Infinity Stones. So 6 being perfect, and 1 being it wasn't so good. So whoever wants to start, feel free, guys. They're all looking at each other.
I'll kick off.
There we go.
A wonderfully shot, acted, executed film, well balanced across the talking points and then transitioning into the fight scenes. Fight scenes continue to get bigger and better and nicer and different dynamics of coordination between them all. Across the board, it was great. I do feel like, the last, we've been chatting for almost 2.5 hours now. We've referenced so many of the other films that if you haven't seen a good chunk, and if you've read the comics and you know the characters from Adam, great, you can get away with stuff. But if you haven't seen Ragnarok specifically, a lot of things in there really don't make sense, and a lot of the interactions between the characters, a lot of the driving forces specific to this telling of the story come from those films. So without those films, there's a point that you're going to fall down and go, it's just a feast for the ears, a feast for the eyes, but a famine for the mind at this point. Because there's just nothing to.
You won't get it.
You won't, and it's kind of a falling as a standalone film. Now it's meant as a collaboration and coming together of everything. So it was one of the few. I don't rarely go see films a second time, but I probably would go see it again. So. Somewhere between 5, 5.5 to 6. It's up there as being a very, very fantastic film.
Excellent.
Okay. So, I had a lot of concerns going into this movie, just because, and I've talked about this before earlier, about, there's just so much going on. There's no narrative way to, handle it terribly well, but they did really well with, the grouping, and I think The way they did the grouping, a lot of the characters played off of each other really, really well. We had like the Tony Stark, Doctor Strange thing going on, and we had Black Panther, Captain America, and all of that going on, and it felt like they all had like different unique styles, and I felt like it came together and it meshed really, really cohesively. And when you put that as like the fuel for what Marvel generally does with their films, which is a lot of spectacle and a lot of really character-driven story around a superhero film, I think this worked really, really well. All the way from like the opening sequence on the Asgardian ship that just immediately established, how this was going to go. We have Thanos being active, beating the crap out of the Hulk, everything like that. Loki being apparently killed, stuff like that. All the way through the end of the first part of this duology. And it's going to be really interesting seeing how that moves forward. I am going to go ahead and give this one 5 stars. Well, 5 stones. Infinity Stones.
5 stones.
5 stones.
Oh man, this movie was so good. I saw it at 10:30 at night on Friday, and then I saw it at 12:30 on Saturday the next day. I saw it 2 times within 12 hours of each other. It was just that good. Honestly, like, because if you take the parts that most people complain about Marvel movies, where there's too much comedy, or there's not a good villain, or anything like that, those 2 problems aren't even apparent in this film. The comedy is only really there to help ease the tension of the film, and if someone tried to tell me Thanos is the bad villain, I'm just going to laugh at them, because Thanos was amazing. Thanos was probably the best part of the movie, how he was a super sympathetic character, he was pretty down to earth in what he wanted to do, and he was willing to sacrifice where he needed to. Like, if what he wanted to do was almost anything different, he would have been a hero.
Yeah,
because he wanted to help the universe. Just the way he wanted to do it was what made him a villain. He's all the perfect makings of a hero. He's just doing the villain thing to do it. I think that makes him probably the most complex, the best villain in the MCU. Still gets me choked up a little bit to think of how Tom Holland died, of how Peter went, about all the deaths that were really impactful. They didn't ease up on any of the tension. They would have jokes in there to help ease it, but they never like had comedy just for having comedy in there. They knew what kind of movie this was supposed to be, and I loved it. I would definitely give it 6 stones, because the parts that even we complain about, I feel like are just nitpicky. Because it's such a good film, there's not really much. We're kind of at the nitpicking stage because there's nothing really main plot-wise or main character-wise that really makes it a bad film. So 6 stones.
6 stones. Yeah, I'm for the most part with you guys. I think that as I look at my theories that I was going into the movie with, I don't know why I thought that we would lose Thor, Captain America, and or Iron Man. Because with them being gone, there's more resolution, and I know there's a part 2 coming. And so they did exactly what I should have expected them to, which is not give us any resolution whatsoever, because then you'd have some people who are like, oh, well, Captain America's not in this movie, I'm done. The characters that have been around since day 1 are still there. With the exception of probably Bucky or Falcon is the longer standing, but even those 2 are not so much. So I think that it gave us what I should have expected. But at the same time, because of all of the discussion that we had, everybody having all their theories of because contracts are expiring, they've only signed on for so many. We should have definitely expected something else. I loved the build-up. I loved the pacing. I loved the fact that, as Casey had said earlier, that you have really like 6 different movie types together that melded very well into one. Very Infinity Gauntlet of them to do. But it felt like it was a movie. Like, they talk about it of 10 years, 18 movies in the making, and it really, until you sit back and look at the very first Iron Man and where they've come from that point, everything has been building up to this. It's, from the first one, it was building the team, getting a team together, and that team then was fighting Loki, which we find out what Loki was being basically puppeted by Thanos in order to send that first wave. And so far, and everything just been building and building and building. All these characters coming together for this one fight. and then to see how easily they were all dismissed. It's heart-wrenching, but it's good. It's good movies. It's definitely just good screenplay, writing, and I'm very, very happy with what they did. Happy may not be the right word. I'm very pleased with how they did it. Happy, no, I'm depressed now. I'm sad, and I need to cry with some Haagen-Dazs to get over this one. But luckily, we only have to wait like a couple weeks, and we get some Deadpool. And there's nothing sad about Deadpool. I don't.
Yeah, we don't know.
mean,
they could kill off Deadpool.
They might phase everyone out the same way at the end of it. Go, oh shit!
Be like, he looks at Cable, and goes, Thanos, what are you doing? Wrong movie.
You know, what would be really good is if a post credits was like Deadpool like fading away into the same mist, or like ash,
and then he appears and with everybody.
And then you see the ash, and it like comes back together, and he's like, fuck you guys, you know, like I wasn't gonna do that. I'm gonna give it a 5.5 stones for making me that sad, because I'm serious. It was like hours after it, and like Jordan's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, they killed everybody. I'm like, I'm just sad still. So yeah, I loved it, but screw you, Infinity War, for making me so sad. You don't get a full 6 stones. But yeah, that wraps it up. This is definitely going to be a 2-parter, so you guys have now listened to us for 2 weeks in a row. And just hopefully by the end you stuck around, because we got some good puns and everything to make that out.
I think all puns are part 2.
Oh yeah.
So
I think so. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for us. I'm not sure, it's 2 weeks away, so I'm going to have to see by then what movies are out and who's going to be guest hosting. So check out either on Twitter at Drive-In Eventide, or you guys can always email me if you want to complain or give us some in memoriam for characters that you missed, and that's driveineventide@gmail.com. Until next time, guys, thank you for coming on. This was awesome. 3 new guest hosts. We'll have to have you guys on again for something that is not as sad at the end, but still just as thrilling, because it was awesome.
I'll put my hat in for Jurassic World.
Jurassic World.
If you don't have anybody, I'll throw my hat in for that one.
Incredibles. I volunteer as tribute.
Volunteer. All right. Casey's like, I'll wait. I'll see.
You know what? I'm a movie guy. Anytime you need me.
All right. We got you guys on speed dial. So until next time, guys, drive home safe, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.